Israel monitors the east and north, targeting the pro-Iran Lebanese Hezbollah. Look at these intense attacks from the weekend. Several different locations across the country were hit in these Israeli attacks. What we learned overnight is that the Israelis launched a ground operation in southern Lebanon. They describe it as limited at this moment, but there are tanks and troops in southern Lebanon. Some footage from overnight shows IDF soldiers in Hezbollah territory. Interestingly, reports indicate that up to 450,000 Israeli reservists could be called up in the coming days for a ground operation against Hezbollah. There are signs this will spread through southern Lebanon to confront Iran's main regional representative. Guys.
So, Trey, is there any information about the internet connection so we can see what's happening in Tehran for the population? No.
They can see what's happening.
All right, understood.
Yes, this is a great topic to discuss. We know that recent reports indicate that the Iranians have once again blocked much of the internet throughout the country to prevent civilians from organizing or expressing their contempt for the government. Remember that during the protests earlier this year, Fox News was able to contact many people who were using Starlink in Iran. They were receiving messages and even images from outside the country, but this has been challenging for these civilians over the past 2 months. Because reports indicate that Iranian regime officials on the ground are going door to door looking for anyone with Starlink who can communicate with the outside world. Therefore, it is becoming increasingly difficult for civilians to communicate with people outside of Iran. But we continue to receive some information about the internal crackdown as they try to prevent this from happening. Trey?
Over the weekend, according to the Chancellor on Face the Nation, confirmed having more than 400 kilograms of enriched uranium at 60%. When asked where it was, he said, buried under a site that we blew up. In 2025, you can make a bomb. Is it really possible to end this conflict knowing that they still have and have confirmed this enriched uranium? Do you think both sides would ever feel satisfied to end this, to end the confrontation with that? Not yet.
And I spoke with President Trump last week, who told me that Iran was working on another nuclear site. Regarding enriched uranium, the United States envoy Steve Witkoff mentioned the initial proposal. They had 460 kilos of uranium at 60%, just one step away from 90%, which is weapons-grade material for a nuclear bomb. But even with 460 kilos, that's already enough for 11 nuclear weapons. So in short, neither the Americans nor the Israelis will be satisfied.
Trey, thank you so much, okay? We were talking about this over the weekend. How would it be possible to extract the enriched uranium without being hit by nuclear weapons, without hitting our troops or causing a big explosion? It's very dangerous. I don't know how to remove it, or if we just go in and blow it up.
I know that specialists can remove it. We need to start now.
Yes.
And it's buried. Because it's a complex operation. Midnight Hammer was very effective, but the problem is that they were rebuilding and creating an additional site on top of it. All of this explains the attitude we took.
You can trust it. They really do have that enriched uranium. Well,
let's put it that way. It's not advantageous for them to admit it. I think that foreign minister ended up saying it kind of because of Margaret Brennan. It makes sense, though. Well, that makes them look like liars. We don't enrich uranium above 3%. It's for energy. Now they're at 60%.
A week before, yeah, so
they are liars. The Minister of Foreign Affairs and the President don't control the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, so they say, we won't attack our Arab neighbors, but they are attacking them. Don't say you only focus on military installations. We see the damage you've caused in offices.
And we offered them uranium so they could supply their nuclear plants, and that would provide them with energy. And they said no because they want to enrich.
Get rich abroad and return them.
With that, let's bring in the former Navy CEO and host of the Everyday Warrior podcast, Mike Sorelli. Mike, where do you want to pick up from? Carly's question was interrupted by another question. If all these countries, as Trey said, end up providing warships, and we're specifically talking about those that depend on oil, through the Strait of Hormuz, that would end Iran's ability to completely and effectively block passage through the strait.
It would be over. You need to understand that, the Strait of Hormuz is Iran's weapon pointed at the head of the global economy. That's always been their playbook. So, these escorts are no longer about ships. It's about securing the energy markets again. So, this is not just in the interest of the United States, but of all countries to provide these escorts to bring stability to global markets. That's the whole point.
Right. So, Mike, go a little deeper into that for us tactically. What do you think should be the next steps to ensure the security of the Strait of Hormuz and restore, as you said, global security for the world economy?
Great question, Carly. So, look, we need to go back to the long-standing policy of the IRGC, which was when their homeland is in danger, under attack, as we see now. Their playbook has always been to use their pressure lever, the Strait of Hormuz. Their intention is to raise the cost of a war, both regionally and globally. So, guys, besides the escorts, we need to keep destroying, in a strategy of systematic attrition, their attack power. That involves Kharg Island. 90% to 95% of their oil exports go through there. We could see an escalation with a limited ground offensive on the island involving Zerseris Marines in an amphibious assault to take key points. Because Kharg Island is not only their cash register, but it also puts strategic pressure on Iran. And that's why this would be crucial. It is strategically located in the Strait, serving as a base for us to advance until the end of this conflict.
How many Marines, American troops, do you imagine going to Kharg Island? And what is the opposition on Kharg Island? When will these troops finally land?
Todd, we've received reports that we attacked more than 90 military targets on Kharg Island. The island houses IRGC naval facilities and its oil infrastructure. So, in addition to those 90 strikes, you would see pre-assault fire to suppress any enemy still remaining on that island, while 300 to 500 Marines conduct an amphibious and airborne assault to take that strategic ground.
Yes, that's what I mean. You're talking about boots on the ground, which is something a lot of people really want to avoid here. If that kind of scenario really happens, which side would have the advantage?
You just conquered the strategic ground. You pressured Iran both economically and tactically, but, you know, we need to point out that these would be limited ground operations. We're not talking about large-scale troops on the ground. That's not the intention, and Trump knows that would be a strategic miscalculation, right?
However, Israeli forces have confirmed that the brother of the perpetrator of the Michigan synagogue attack is a member of Hezbollah, according to the IDF document. Hezbollah commander Ibrahim Mohammed Ghazali managed the weaponry of the Badr unit, which was responsible for launching hundreds of rockets at Israeli civilians during the war. His brother Ayman Mohammed Ghazali carried out the terrorist attack in Michigan last Thursday. Ibrahim was killed in an Israeli Air Force strike on a Hezbollah military facility last week. That raises the question, Mike, why is the brother of a Hezbollah commander even in our country to begin with? You would assume that based on the trust we place in our government, this kind of individual would be investigated and kept out.
No, Todd, that bothers me just like it bothers many Americans. I'll start by talking about immigration, and I'll finish by talking about surveillance. So this points to the need for us to have greater security regarding our immigration. Not only do we need to investigate people coming from these high-risk environments, but we also need to make sure they assimilate to our way of life. When that doesn't happen, we're putting American lives at risk. This isn't the 1950s or 1960s anymore. We live in a very different world, and it doesn't take a battalion of ISIS or IRGC sleeper cells here. All it takes is for a lone wolf to be radicalized to carry out attacks like this. Just like we saw at Old Dominion University, where we lost a soldier who was close to retirement. Now, with this vigilance, we Americans must realize that the 21st century is different from before. We allow people to enter not only from the South, but also because of weak immigration laws. As American citizens, we must be vigilant. If you see something, report it. If there is any suspicion that someone is becoming radicalized, report it. If we don't make sure that the people who come to our country assimilate to our cultural norms and values, things will keep going wrong. It's very difficult for intelligence to find these needles in a haystack, these lone wolves. Therefore, vigilance is a duty of every American. For sure.